Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to talk about something that impacts every single one of us, right in our wallets. Inflation. The latest Consumer Price Index report for May 2025 just came out, and it brings some surprisingly quiet news, even as the specter of tariffs continues to loom large over the American economy. While the headline numbers might offer a moment of relief, many experts are suggesting this could just be the calm before a storm. So let's get straight to the numbers. The Consumer Price Index, which is a broad measure of goods and services costs across the U.S. economy, increased by a mere 0.1% for the month of May. On an annual basis, meaning compared to a year ago, inflation stood at 2.4%. This was actually less than many economists had predicted, who were largely looking for a 0.2% monthly rise and a 2.5% annual increase. When we strip out the more volatile categories like food and energy, what's known as core CPI came in at 0.1% for the month and 2.8% annually. These core figures are particularly important because Federal Reserve officials pay close attention to them as a better gauge of long-term inflation trends. For 3 consecutive months now, this core rate has held steady at 2.8%. While the annual inflation rate did tick up slightly from April's 2.3%, economists like Mark Zandi from Moody's are saying this report signals that inflation has finally gotten back to the Federal Reserve's target level. However, others are more cautious. Much of the modesty in May's inflation figures can be attributed to a continued weakness in energy prices, which helped to offset some of the increases seen elsewhere. Gasoline, for instance, saw a 2.6% drop in May alone, contributing to a substantial 12% year-over-year decrease. This decline in oil prices, reflecting concerns about a slowdown in global economic growth, directly translates to lower costs at the pump and reduced transportation expenses such as airline fares. Indeed, airfares fell about 3% from April to May and are down 7% for the year. We also saw declines in the prices of new and used vehicles, as well as apparel. On the other hand, certain categories did experience price hikes. Food prices collectively increased by 0.3% in May, with grocery prices specifically rising 0.3% for the month and 2.2% over the last year. Fruits, vegetables, breakfast cereals, and frozen foods all saw price increases, and consumers noted higher prices for items like beef and coffee. Even though egg prices fell 2.7% in May, they were still a staggering 41.5% higher than a year ago. Shelter costs also rose by 0.3% for the month and were identified as the primary factor in the otherwise modest CPI increase. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: tariffs. Despite President Trump's sweeping tariff policies, the May inflation report showed little immediate impact on overall consumer prices. Economists suggest that this muted effect is largely because many companies have been absorbing the higher costs themselves, or are drawing down existing inventories that were purchased before the tariffs took full effect. Alexandra Wilson Alonso of Goldman Sachs Asset Management notes that the benign May readings suggest companies are using existing inventories or slowly adjusting prices due to uncertain demand. However, this doesn't mean we're out of the woods. The consensus among many economists is that these import taxes are likely to begin noticeably increasing inflation in the second half of the year. Some early signs of tariff-related price hikes did appear in May's report, particularly in tariff-sensitive goods like major appliances, which jumped 4.3% for the month, and toys, which climbed 2.2%. Companies are already signaling changes. For example, Walmart stated they would begin raising prices later in May. Lalo, a baby product company, has started increasing prices on most of their products, with co-founder Michael Weeder explaining they are facing tariffs as high as 30% to 55% on incoming goods. JM Smucker Co., which imports significant amounts of coffee, already raised prices in May and plans another increase in August due to the 10% universal tariff on their coffee imports. It's estimated that the average U.S. household could pay about $2,500 more in 2025 due to current tariff policies. Furthermore, duties on raw materials like steel and aluminum are expected to filter through the entire supply chain, affecting a wide range of products from groceries to cars. President Trump's administration has levied a range of tariffs, including a 10% universal duty on most U.S. imports and a significant 55% tariff on all imports from China. Additional levies include 50% duties on steel and aluminum and 25% on imported vehicles and car parts. While a federal appeals court has allowed some tariffs to remain in effect, the White House maintains that foreign producers will absorb much of these costs. The Federal Reserve is in a challenging position. With core inflation still at 2.8%, it remains stubbornly above their 2% target. This makes it less likely that the central bank will cut its key short-term interest rate anytime soon. Despite persistent urging from President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, who called the Fed's refusal to cut rates monetary malpractice, the Fed is widely expected to hold rates steady at its upcoming June meeting. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has explicitly stated that officials will keep their key rate unchanged until they have a clearer understanding of how tariffs will affect the economy. Powell has even warned about the possibility of stagflation, a difficult scenario where inflation rises while the economy slows. Adding another layer of complexity to evaluating inflation numbers are recent changes in data collection by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Due to a hiring freeze, the Bureau has restricted its data collection and expanded a process called imputation, where models are used to fill in incomplete data. This includes reducing sample sizes across the country and suspending collection entirely in some cities. While the Bureau states this will have minimal impact on overall data, some analysts suggest that smaller sample sizes could lead to greater volatility in reports. So, what does this all mean for you? The May inflation report offers a temporary reprieve, suggesting that the initial wave of tariffs hasn't caused widespread price shocks yet. However, the underlying message from many economists is that this is likely a short-term phenomenon. Businesses are expected to pass on higher tariff costs to consumers in the coming months, which could lead to a reacceleration of inflation, particularly over the summer and fall. The Federal Reserve remains watchful, weighing the delicate balance between managing inflation and supporting economic growth amidst this tariff-induced uncertainty. We'll all need to keep a close eye on the next few reports to see how these dynamics play out. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this gave you a clearer picture of the current inflation landscape and what might be on the horizon. Until next time, stay informed.